It's that time of the year. The temperatures are cooling and the leaves are falling. The holidays are coming and you're probably thinking about traveling to see family. All of that brings a lot of stress, and things that aren't seen as top priority probably aren't getting done this time of year. As founders, it's easy to just put your head down, finish the most pressing tasks, and feel good about heading into the holiday break. And one item that is easy to leave out in this season is good communication. It might be with your team, it might be with family members, or even customers. So in this video, we're going to help kind of think through what good communication is with internal stakeholders and go over how to write investor updates. Now, even if you don't have investors or you don't aspire to have investors, you can think of investor updates as a mentor update. You can think of them as an internal update. They're just a really good tool to help build good communication habits. So let's get into what is a good investor update. Let's go over what investor updates are. And investor updates are internal updates to your current stakeholders or potential future stakeholders that you want potentially to help you build your business. Now, investor updates, if you do them consistently and before you start raising money, if you aspire to do that, can be a huge asset in fundraising, because instead of having to go to pitch meetings just blindly, it's very cold. Investors will already know what you're doing, what you're working on. They'll have kind of a framework of what you've already accomplished. So it's a great way to build a relationship with potential investors before you even fundraise, especially if you're meeting, investors at meetups or whatever it might be. If you're starting to meet investors for a future fundraise, investor updates can be a huge asset for your fundraising later on. Now, the other part about investor updates, like I mentioned, is that they don't have to just go to investors. They can go to internal stakeholders. So if you want to send them to your team, you can send them to family members, you can send them to mentors. You decide who you want to send investor updates to and who you want to keep in the loop about the internal progresses that's happening at your business. Now, the general structure of investor updates is pretty simple, but if you need help to get started, there is a Notion template in the link below if you'd like to use that as a template to help you get started with your first investor updates. Now, investor updates are broken into 4 sections. The first section is just doing what is your one sentence pitch for your business. Now, this is really important because not everyone receiving your email is probably going to remember what your business does. So by having this one sentence pitch at the very top of the email, it helps remind everyone what you're doing. It helps you make sure that that pitch is accurate, and especially if you're pivoting or anything like that. So have that at the very top of the investor update. The second section of investor updates is the ask section. Now, that is a great place if you need help with anything to put it. So let's say you need help with a financial model, or maybe help with your pitch deck, or just help finding a new hire. The ask section is a great place to put those things. The third section is categorized updates. Now, I like to organize all my thoughts in an investor update into 3 sections. One would be product development, the second one being marketing, and the third one being operations. Now, you're essentially just creating different buckets. That way, especially if it's mentors that are looking at it, maybe they don't care about product development, maybe they don't care about operations, they can know exactly where they want to read really quickly. So it also helps you keep your thoughts really clean and you're not just jumping around. The fourth section of an investor update is KPIs, or key performance indicators. And these are just a handful of metrics that are showing how your business is growing, how it's being impactful. And these are really crucial for investors because they want to see how your business is growing over time. And KPIs do just that. They are a quick glance into how your business is doing. Now, what to do and what not to do with your investor updates. First, what to do is make sure you have permission to add people to your investor update list. Not everyone wants your investor update, so even if you take one meeting with a potential investor or maybe with a potential mentor, at the very end of that meeting, you can even ask them, hey, is it okay if I add you to our investor updates? We send them out monthly. However, you can ask that question. And people really love when you ask, and that helps build the relationship because not everyone wants another email in their inbox. Point number 2 is similar to number 1, but it's different. And that is, don't just send your email updates as normal emails and just BCC everyone. That's not the right thing to do. What you want to do is be able to give people the ability to unsubscribe. So send them through a MailChimp, then send them through ConvertKit. Whatever email service provider you're using for your mailing list is great for investor updates as well. Give people the ability to unsubscribe, because let's face it, over time, sometimes people just kind of fall out of love about your venture, or maybe they just don't need to hear from you anymore. Whatever it might be, life happens, and give people the ability to unsubscribe so they have one last email in their inbox. It is a sneaky good relationship building tool, so that way you're not just burning a bridge, and it's also they're not just marking you as spam, which hurts you in the long run. Point number 3 is really short and sweet, and that is, keep your investor updates simple. Not everyone needs to know all the details of what you did yesterday or anything else. Keep them really high level. That's what people care about. Point number 4 is, don't just brain vomit into your investor updates. They're not blog posts, they're not these long essays, and no one likes reading long blocks of text in an email anyways. So keep them organized, keep them short, keep them sweet, keep them really high level, like we just mentioned in the last point. And point number 5 is, don't be discouraged if no one is responding to your investor updates at first. Life happens, and just because they haven't responded doesn't mean they didn't read it and gain value out of it. And just like life and a lot of things in entrepreneurship, if you're consistent and you're providing good value, good things will happen. Just be patient with them, because you're creating value just by being consistent and providing good value of what's happening in your venture. So be patient with what the value will bring of your investor updates. Now, we've talked a lot about how to write investor updates. Now let's talk about why they are important and valuable. And first is that people love helping others. It's our natural instinct to help others. So if you ask for something, you shall receive eventually, is usually how it goes. Plus, one of my favorite parts about investor updates is that it helps you create what I like to call intentional serendipity. You don't know who knows who or what kind of skill sets they might have had in their past. It's not on their LinkedIn. So if you're sending them and asking for, do you know such and such at these kind of companies or whatnot, whatever it might be for the networking side, sometimes people can come out of the woodwork or just randomly saying like, oh, I have that connection. It's a really good place to help you increase your chances of getting lucky. So give yourself the opportunity to have that intentional serendipity for those lucky moments to happen, because they might be a big break for you and your business. And lastly, investor updates are a great relationship building tool with investors and also just with all of your internal stakeholders. Because relationships are not just dots, they are lines. And every single investor update that you send is another dot in that line. You're building that relationship. And if you're going to raise money in the future, or you're talking to investors right now, investor updates are great for keeping them in the loop. They remember that what you're doing, and also they can see the progress and what your team is doing, how it executes. Because let's face it, investors love investing in teams that are executing, in great teams that are building impactful ventures. So the more that you can show that in investor updates over a period of time, and when it comes to raising money, the chances of you being able to raise that money through those investors already on your list goes significantly higher, because you've developed that relationship with every single investor update that you're sending, and you're showing the progress over time. So if you've never written an investor update before, I highly encourage you to at least give it a shot. Even if you just send it to 5 people, that's at least a starting point. And you can use the Notion template down in the link below to get started. So use that template, send it to your first 5 people, and see what happens. Be consistent about them.